Good morning, everyone. Okay, today we're going to continue with the book by Rav Avigdor Miller that says Career of Happiness. Very advisable that married couples and people who are going to get married should get this book. It's a very easy read, just to go over it in order for us to be able to understand how to deal with marriage. So we're up to the 10 Commandments of marriage. We went through 4 of them already. The first one was be realistic, meaning a person when he gets into the marriage should really not think that he's getting into a Prince Charming and Princess Charming situation, yeah, because there are real situations that are gonna come up. You're marrying a person, a human being who has faults, who has things that are not as they seem when you're going out. So he says, be realistic, and it's advisable to listen to the 2 shurim before we did 10 Commandments number 1, 10 Commandments number 2. This is the third one. So the first was be realistic. The second one was do not disrupt the routine of marriage, meaning if you're already arguing, don't disrupt the routine, meaning she cooks, keep cooking. If you give her money, keep giving money. The mikvah situation, to keep going, meaning don't disrupt the routine that was going on when you had good relations. Now that the relationship is a little bit sour, keep up the routine of the marriage. That was number 2. The third one was make peace, meaning you shouldn't argue to begin with, but there are going to be arguments. So he says, as soon as the argument ensues, try to make peace ASAP, meaning that same night, and if not the same night, the next morning. If not the next morning, as soon as it's possible. It says either one of the 2, whether husband or wife, who's the strongest one, quote unquote, meaning the one who's able to control their emotions, should come to the other one, even though the other one might be wrong, and make a gesture of peace to try to play down the situation and get back to marriage life. The fourth one we said was never say the word get, which means divorce. This is a very dangerous word, and when we get into holy marriage, there is a holy contract between the 2 people. And he says once the word get or divorce is introduced, it basically plants a seed into either one of the spouses. And something that was never imaginable is now slowly brewing and growing, and the word could actually become a reality. So he says never say the word get. We're up to number 5. 5 says be loyal. So he goes like this. It says the 5th commandment is be loyal. Feel that you are responsible for the welfare and happiness of your mate. Which means, look what it says, feel that you're responsible for the welfare and happiness of the mate. For your mate. Be ready to go through fire and water for your husband or wife. It is not a matter of love, but a matter of duty. Meaning once you are married, you have committed yourselves and you have given your word in the utmost holiness to be loyal to each other. If you can help your husband save money, if you can help your wife with a little bit of work in the house, like washing dishes and what have you, or if you can protect her reputation from people who would like to wag tongues. No, my wife is a very good cook. Among relatives, sometimes somebody will make a joke. Jenny isn't such a good cook. Oh no, you must leap in defense of your wife. Whether she is or not, you must be loyal, meaning she must always be loyal when she speaks about her husband to her parents. No matter what happens in the house, the loyalty of the couple has to be unimpeachable. It's not a matter of affection. It's your duty to fight for each other. A lot of times we have between husbands and wives, they joke around, oh, you like this, you like that, meaning they ha ha, he. But what happens is that stuff becomes a little bit on a serious level. You joke around with your friends, with your family members. Yeah, my wife, yesterday she cooked so on and so forth. Says, don't do that. When you're loyal to somebody, you'll never put that individual down in front of anybody. So he says you have to stick up to her. It's not about love or affection. It's about your duty to be loyal to her or to him. Among the principles included in loyalty is to, for example, say that your husband is the best singer if he's a chazan, and even if he's not a good singer, he's the best speaker if he's a rabbi. My husband sells the best shoes if he has a shoe store. Yeah? Meaning some people look down on women who stand up for their husband. But you should know that this is an admirable quality. Yeah? A lot of times girls like to joke around with their other friends and say, oh, my husband's like this, my husband has 2 left hands, and so on and so forth. Says you should say, my husband does the best thing, has the best merchandise, is the best performer, always. And the husband should always say that my wife is the best cook, has the cleanest house, tries her best to save money. Constantly, you should stand up for each other. This has nothing to do with romance. Again, he points out, nothing to do with romance. It was expected when you stood under the chuppah together to plow the earth of Olam Hazeh, meaning this world, to make a living, to bring up a family, to make ends meet, to be together in illness and good health. You should be together when your children are married, and you should be together in the world to come. And therefore, loyalty is one of the biggest mitzvot of marriage. See, there was a sage in the Gemara whose wife, his second wife happens to be, was frequently addicted to belittling him. And he was a very great man. She was constantly irritating his father, countercommanding his orders and his requests. His son from his first wife understood the situation. So once when his father was talking rapturously about the duty of respecting one's wife, his son asked, "What about the present one that you have? Do you respect her too?" He answered, "Yes. No matter what she says, it passes quickly." Meaning, in the Gemara it says that she used to come into the house of study while he was teaching, and she used to, you this, you that, and whatever. And beyond all this, besides the fact that he got all this beating, he still respected her. Now pay attention to that. He did not take her mean words seriously. Do not take serious any mean words. Sometimes it is merely an expression of a person's feeling at the moment. It happens many times that when a husband and wife are in an argument situation, they spew out some words that are really not, they don't mean. It comes out. Unfortunately, usually it's the women, but sometimes it's the men. They take these words to heart and they stick to these words that even a day after, a week after, a month after, a year after, sometimes 10 years after, "Oh, do you remember what you said to me? Do you remember what you called me? Do you remember what words you said to me?" He says these kind of things should come in and out of your ears. Act as if you did not hear it and pay no attention to it. Forget it as soon as possible. What usually happens, however, is that he or she becomes inflamed with wrath. For no reason at all, she belittled me. And she becomes so disappointed, so disillusioned because of no blame of hers. He cut her down. Sometimes that begins a series of give and takes that ends up in schisms and even a breakup. Very frequently, a mean word is taken seriously and it begins a chain of events. He says over here, when I asked a couple who were battling, "Is it anything serious in principle that you can list?" Meaning he asks the wife, "So what's really wrong with your husband? Is he too stingy with money? Is he too lazy to make a living? Does he hit you? Does he gamble or stay out at night?" And to all this she answers, "No, Rabbi, no. So what is it all about then? He's a decent man making a living, and he's giving you all the money that you need for your household, and you can buy your groceries too. He's not a bum, and he's shomer mitzvot. So what do you want from him?" She answers, "He spoke mean words to me, and he broke he broke her." Meaning he does everything good, he works, he doesn't have friends, he doesn't smoke, he's home. But being in the course of the argument, he said something bad to her, and to her, this is an atomic bomb. Mean words are exchanged in very many households. I do not say most households. He says many households, but it is a fact of life. But it is certainly not a serious enough reason to cause a rift between married people. It certainly should not be done, right? He says, don't say bad words. Absolutely not. And when we will soon, he says we'll soon talk about this subject a little bit more, but never taking anything like that seriously. Serious things means a husband who does not work, a husband who's a gambler, one who does not come home at night. All of these are serious problems. Serious is if a husband or a wife start becoming lenient with Shabbat, or different types of mitzvot. Serious is if a husband or wife are mentally disturbed. These are serious things. But just because words were exchanged, there is never a reason to make a rift in the house. Words come and go, and therefore they should never be taken seriously. Imagine that you're walking in the street and a Gentile says to you, "Hey, you this and this." He said, would anybody stop and have an argument with this Gentile? Absolutely not. Who knows what can happen? Who knows what he can do? So he's talking about here of how a young a young yeshiva guy was walking and some goy said something to him, and the yeshiva guy responded to what happened. The goy beat him up and he landed him in a hospital. He says at the end, the goy was arrested, but he was let go, and for months this boy had to go through recuperation, and then there was nothing done with the boy. So he says, it's not worth it, basically. To take words seriously is not worth it. He says, you should have listened to the Gemara's admonition. Happy is the man who hears and ignores. Happy is the man who hears, or the woman, by the way, who hears and ignores. 100 evils pass him by. This is in Sanhedrin, Masech Sanhedrin. In marriage, how important that principle is. Constantly somebody is saying some foolish and stupid thing to others. You did not hear it. And you will continue to live in happiness with your wife. Marriage is happiness, after all. What is happiness in this world? It is living. Is it living in great style? Getting by and being able to exist is a great happiness in this world. You hear what it says? Getting by and being able to exist is a great happiness in this world. Do not expect too much. Remember the first commandment of marriage. Be realistic. It says, and therefore we must pay attention to this important admonition from our sages in the Gemara. Do not take mean words seriously. Maybe a few minutes later, the same partner who said the bad words is going to come and say words of kindness. Too often in marriage, this concept is very, very, very important, where unfortunately words are said. They shouldn't be said, but words are said out of anger, out of uncontrolled, situations, and these are taken very seriously, and they create much more problems than they are. Okay, so that was number 5. Number 6 says, never say the word "I hate you." It says the 6th commandment is that never should anyone say "I hate you." That is like taking a precious piece of chinaware and smashing it on the floor. You can pick it up, glue it together, but it's never the same. Those words should never be said. Never say "you're ugly," especially to your wife. You must maintain the imagery situation that existed at the moment of marriage forever and ever. Even when your wife is very old and wrinkled and toothless, make sure that you do not acknowledge any of her changed appearances. Now, if you're wise enough, you look as nice as you were when I married you. That's what you should be telling her. You're going to get olam haba for it. But under no circumstances should you even hint that there has been any change in your attitude towards the way she looks. Unfortunately, sometimes married couples, they get into a joking mood. And it's a mutual thing, meaning, sometimes she starts, sometimes he starts, and she welcomes the joke and he welcomes the joke. But what happens is the joke gets a little bit too serious, and then you kind of say, yeah, you're so and so forth, or you fat, or you this, or that. And all of a sudden, tap! There's a little thing that triggers in the mind, and ushol. It becomes a big problem. He says, don't do that. Not even jokingly. Forget seriousness, but not even jokingly. He says, do not think that this is a minor thing, because marriage is based on the feeling of attraction between a couple. Old people have already subsided. The fire of youth has died out within them. Many times there is no physical attraction anymore, yet they must maintain the illusion forever. You hear what he says? He says, you must maintain an illusion of the fact that your husband and your wife are beautiful. To the last day, a woman asks if she has many wrinkles. Even an old great-grandmother with her foot in the grave already looks in the mirror and says, look how beautiful I am. I don't have too many wrinkles. It is important to her. So make it your business that you are never going to say those faithful words. Chas v'shalom, any partner should say, I hate you, even I don't like you, which is of course less heinous crime, but it never should be said. You must know that these words are being constantly hurled back and forth. We're going to go upstairs. Yeah, there was a young woman who called me up. Her husband said he sees women on the street who are much more beautiful. That's a crime, meaning he tells her, wow, I just saw Shoshana, she looks pretty good. I know that this woman he says, I know and I see this woman pushing a carriage. A nice looking young woman, very loyal, raising a family, good cook, and she does everything. It is fair to tell her, is it fair to tell her such a thing, that there are more beautiful women in the street? Isn't that ridiculous? And the truth is, when this woman walks on the street, other men say the same thing about her to their wives. Her husband does not think that it is a serious thing. He should know that his Torah and mitzvot are going down the drain as a result of what he said. By saying such a careless and cruel thing, many times wearing tefillin are going lost from him. Very many mitzvot are being destroyed. Those words are like a knife in the heart of a woman. So a separate one of the 10 commandments is never to say to each other, chas v'shalom, that I hate you or you are ugly. Number 7, love your neighbor as yourself. Let's see what he says over there. There's a special mitzvah in the Torah that everybody knows, but it is not spoken about enough. If you are from Jew, meaning a Jew that's observing, then this must be one of the major goals in the attempt to serve Hashem. Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. You should love your neighbor as yourself. We're going to talk about it as a separate one of the 10 commandments in marriage. The Gemara says that one should marry through an intermediary. The Gemara says that one should not marry through an intermediary, meaning somebody says, oh, I have a girl for you, I have a guy for you. Without looking, get married. No, he should first go and take a look at his intended mate. Because later, if he did not see whom he was marrying, he might be disappointed and he would not fulfill the commandment of Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, and will transgress. You shall not have any animosity towards the fellow man. It applies to your wife as well as to anyone else. The truth is that it applies much more to your wife. I will briefly explain why. When a mitzvah is done once, there is a reward for it. If a mitzvah is done twice, there is much greater reward. Everything depends on how numerous the number of acts are. So, if you do a mitzvah many times, even the same one and again, the reward is very great. Now, we will take the opposite. Rabbi Yonah says in Sha'arei HaTeshuvah, says that when a man transgresses a mitzvah aseh, a positive commandment, a number of times, it becomes so serious that it becomes like there is no sin. Yeah? Meaning, it's as if he's not doing it. Imagine if a man repeatedly neglects to say Kriyat Shema, in the proper time. It is as if he was a Mechalel Shabbat, or Chas v'Shalom, he killed a human being or worshipped an idol. A small transgression, repeated numerous times, is like taking thin cords and twisting them together until they are a very heavy rope. This is how serious it is to repeat a sin over and over again. Now, what opportunity is presented to a man to fulfill mitzvot or avirot over and over again? Nothing like marriage, because it is a daily contact. If a man during his lifetime frequently thinks thoughts of hostility towards his wife, even if he does not say anything, and he is able to contain himself, it is a terrible thing. Meaning, he says that a person doesn't say anything to his wife, or she doesn't say anything to him. However, inside she's thinking, he does this to me, he does that to me, or she's like this, she's like that. He says, some women tell me, meaning tell the Rav, that I hate my husband. That's a terrible thing. She doesn't tell him, but she has it in her heart. He says, by repeating that thought again and again, you transgress. You shall not hate your brother in your heart. And it becomes like murder, chilul Shabbat, or worshiping an idol. Therefore, the commandment, Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, is one of the most important obligations in life. The opportunity in life to transgress it is so frequent. Any Jew who wishes to serve Hashem, even in a moderate way, must make up in his mind that this should be a major target of his life aspirations, meaning to love another Jew. When he is married, he must make up in his mind that no matter what, he will love his mate, and she should also have that in her mind. And because of love of your mate, many results come forth from that principle. It says this requires constant politeness. Just as you feel differently when you're asked something nicely with please, so should you say please. Sarah, will you please hand me this, or will you please hand me that? And afterwards say, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we being married, we take this a little bit lightly. We feel like our mate is supposed to bring us some tea, or supposed to give us some food, or supposed to cook us for this, or supposed to give us the money. No, he says, please, can you give me a certain amount of money that I need to go shopping? Please, can you make me this and this food? Meaning, you always have to talk politely. When a man's wife comes and says, Chaim, I need money to buy shoes for my children, please. And he says, here it is. And she replies, thank you very much. Now, of course, it is all superfluous because that is his duty, meaning he has to give her the money and she has to, buy the, but he must supply the, but by saying please and thank you, she has lubricated the relationships of life. Therefore, politeness should always reign supreme in the house. That was number 7. Number 8 says, display your regard for your mate. Always do things in a way that demonstrates a certain regard for your mate, especially in the presence of children. In the presence of children. When a man sings so low as to belittle his wife to his children, that man has lost his morality. Sometimes it happens even in the presence of his wife, and it happens more often than not, which means that this man has a corrupt character. In the synagogue, he may be the most important man and most important official. He stands up in the shul and officiates at the amud, meaning he davens at the bima. You may think that he's a very important guy and maybe even a holy personality, but at home he is a corrupt character. If he can say in the presence of his wife to his children, or even not in her presence, your mother is this and that, he's a rasha. And the same thing applies to a woman. She cannot belittle her husband to their children, whether in front of him or behind him. Never should a man raise his voice and shout in the house. Now that might not be easy. Sometimes his wife is abstinent, but even then he should repeat what he wants to his wife and say it firmly and nicely and not scream. But to raise his voice so that neighbors can hear is already like breaking a window in the house. So that is number 8. Number 9, maintain your appearance. Another one of the 10 commandments is especially for women, but also for men to some extent. Women must make it their business never to look slovenly in the house, meaning you shouldn't look like one of these non-kept women. They should always look good, smell good, and not talk too much. Interesting. He says women should always make it their business to appear as beautiful as they can to their husbands. Do not worry about how you look in the street for other people. Your husband is the one man with whom you must make a hit, not with anybody outside. He said, of course, it's not easy. Nothing that is worthwhile is easy to accomplish, but it pays to do so. At all times, remember that your appearance is going to rebound to your benefit. The truth is that even a husband should at many times, as much as possible, think, what impression do I make on my wife and my children? Unfortunately, we don't do that. A lot of men do what? They put their guard down after being married a couple of years and they start becoming overweight and they wear whatever it is that they want to wear, and sometimes they don't smell the best, and they're not kept. They should constantly say, how do I look in the eyes of my wife? How do I look in the eyes of my children?
And one small point.
Yes.
Oral hygiene.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
I can tell you how many people disregard this.
Yes, we have a dentist sitting amongst us, and he says oral hygiene is one of the most important things, and you're absolutely right. Sometimes it's not easy. You'll brush your teeth, you floss and everything, but sometimes the breath comes from the inside. When a person has gastro whatever problems, it creates a problem. When a man is careless in his appearance, even his children look down on him. They will not say anything, yet it is reflected in the way they behave in life, especially later on. They will always remember how their father looked, even that one time when they saw him. Therefore, it pays to constantly be on guard and to make the very best appearance that you can. If you open your mouth and talk, it is disgusting to your husband. Meaning, for a woman, right? If he is a good husband, he keeps quiet, but you are selling yourself down the river by your wagging tongue. You are making yourself cheap and endlessly hacking a chenik, whatever that means. Meaning, talking, advertising that there is nothing in your head at all. How wonderful it is when a person is able to close the dam of conversation. Stop talking. I'm not saying that you should not talk at all, but endless talking ruins your marriage in the presence of your partner. Sometimes a man talks too much. It is also a very great blot on his reputation in the eyes of his wife. Meaning, he says, do not talk. Do not talk. He says talk, but there's a limit. There's a limit, and there's a limit to the type of talking that you do. Many times we black Americans, and many arguments come out because of that excessive talk that's not necessary. And finally, the 10th commandment is do not be a tyrant. Tyrant means ruler. The last of the 10 commandments is do not be a tyrant. This is so frequently disobeyed. It is not the major source of tragedies in the home, but it is a frequent cause. Sometimes it happens among frum people who learn a little bit of Gemara. The money a woman acquires belongs to her husband. Therefore, whatever money a man's wife gets, as soon as she earns something from her little job, her husband appropriates for himself. This is something which should be done in measure by halakha, meaning you must use common sense. If a woman works, you must give her leeway with the way she spends the money. Yeah. Here is a man who did not trust his wife's shopping ability. For years and years, he did not allow her to go to the grocery store or the butcher shop. Yeah, he did the shopping all by himself. Among all her friends, she was the only one not allowed to shop. Her husband was a tyrant. Who cares if the wife wastes a few dollars here and there? Think of it as an expenditure towards happiness. Meaning, a little bit. He's not saying give her the whole salary and let her blow it, senselessly, but give her the opportunity. In many ways, men are tyrants. A man often demands services as if his wife was a private slave. People, even from ones, transgress many things like this. They do not understand that you have no right to be an arrogant. While a wife should respect her husband, often the arrogance of many husbands is really intolerable. Of course, the wife should never make it an issue big enough to go to extremes. But the sin is on the part of the husband is unforgivable. He did not marry a slave. Yeah? Sometimes women become too domineering as well. A professional man spoke to me a few months ago. He does everything because he's afraid of his wife. His wife called me up and said she thinks she should separate from her husband. For a while, because she suspected him of not being sincere with her, she wanted to discover what is doing inside of him. I mean, she calls the rabbi and says, I want to separate from my husband because I don't think he's sincere. Yeah? So he said, what do you think is going inside of him? He asked her, what do you think is going inside of him? I can tell you right away, he's afraid of you. And it is up to you to change your ways. The rabbi said to her, because a lot of times women are professional women, and the man doesn't have such a good job, and it becomes that the woman is a domineering one. If you wish him to act with you sincerely, he says, stop being a bossy tyrant. Yeah? He's afraid to do anything on his own because of you. But, of course, it is more frequent that the husband is the tyrant. Sometimes the wife is also bossy when it comes to details. Marriage is not a full partnership. The husband is the captain, and this is very key. Marriage is not a full partnership. Unfortunately, in our days, with the women's rights and so on, nothing against women, yeah? Women think that they're full 100% partners. He says, no, marriage is not a full partnership. A husband is the captain, and the wife is the first mate. But a captain who tramples on the first mate is asking for mutiny, meaning it's gonna be disaster. And therefore, among the great principles required of a couple is to realize that each one has rights and to never forget that you are a partner, that you are partners that make one entity. It could be you walk first and she walks after you, but you are together as one personality. A body cannot be divided against itself, that you are arrogant over part of yourself. Therefore, this is one of the 10 commandments that tyrannizing one of the other must be avoided. Meaning, he says that neither the woman should be a tyrant, nor the husband should be a tyrant. You guys are, in a way, partners, but there is a head over here. And usually the husband is the captain, he's the one that Hashem made him a man. He made him a man for a reason, and he made a woman for a reason. And each one has respective duties that are outlined in our Torah. And as long as we follow the Torah, and how will we follow the Torah? We have to learn the Torah. Yeah? So Bezat Hashem, with these 10 commandments and with the learning of the Torah, we will be able to become better husbands and better wives. For those who are married, should Bezat Hashem listen to these 3 lectures that we did, and also buy this book by Rabbi Avigdor Miller. Review the whole book, it's very important. And this way you can build on your marriage. Baruch Adonai Olam, Amen v'Amen.